Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me today for another classic film review. It's been a while since I did one of these, but I wanted to start reviewing some of the classic Alfred Hitchcock films. So I figured I would start with one that was one of Hitchcock's favorites, and also that's one of my favorites that he directed, which is saying a lot because Hitchcock directed a lot of great films. And it's 1943's Shadow of a Doubt, which I watched on Alfred Hitchcock, The Ultimate Collection. So I've seen this film several times before, as I do like it quite a bit, but this is the first time I ever watched it on Blu-ray. And for those interested in that sort of thing, I think it's a very solid Blu-ray transfer, and I recommend checking it out. So if you've never seen Shadow of a Doubt, the basic plot of this movie is basically there's a man named Charles, or Uncle Charlie, as he's known later on in the film, and it seems like he might be in some kind of trouble, but we're not really sure what. The film reveals more and more as it goes along. Although it does give a surprising amount away early on in the film, but it works here. But basically, he appears to be on the run from some men, and he decides, to kind of go in hiding, but he's also going to go visit the rest of his family again, including his niece, who's named after him. Her name is also Charlie. I believe it's actually Charlotte. I believe they say it once in the film. But they're all very happy to see him at first, but things kind of spiral out of control from there. So one of the things I really like about Shadow of a Doubt is that it's got a very small town feeling to it, and that type of atmosphere, and it's very authentic. But it's kind of a lower key film than a lot of Alfred Hitchcock's other films. I guess I would say it's a little bit of a simpler film than some of his later films like Vertigo or Psycho. It's just a very solid suspense thriller. It's kind of a slow burn movie. It is a bit deliberate, but it's very character based, and I thought all the characters felt very authentic and real as well. Part of that is due to the really good writing, but I also feel like the acting in this movie is really, really good. Joseph Cotten is particularly strong. I've always felt he's kind of an underappreciated actor from the classic era, and Teresa Wright, who I also think is a very underrated actress, especially her 1940s work is really, really good, and I don't really think we hear about as much about her as we should these days, but that's just kind of my thoughts on that. The supporting acting is all really good as well, especially Hume Cronin, I believe is how you pronounce it, is kind of a neighbor friend named Herb who always talks about strange things like how to kill people and stuff like that. But even that kind of works in the context of the film. But he gives off a kind of a weird vibe that just works here. And like I said, all the characters have solid interactions, but the relationship between the two Charlies, Uncle Charlie and his niece, is the most interesting and most important relationship in the film. But there's even kind of a romantic subplot that works in this film. I just kind of think that everything that Hitchcock threw into this movie really, really worked. The technicals are also very solid. Again, you're not going to get quite as fancy and complex technicals as you get in some of Hitchcock's later films. The editing's more straightforward. The cinematography is more straightforward. It doesn't really rely on a lot of technical tricks, but kind of the subtle way the film is made, it kind of fits with the more basic technicals. But the technicals are still really good. The film just doesn't call for anything too fancy. Another highlight of this film is the score, which is excellent. And, it's not Bernard Herrmann. I don't believe he was working with Hitchcock yet, but this is a really, really good score. So overall, I really, really like Shadow of a Doubt. If I do have a few small complaints about this movie, it is a bit deliberately paced in a few areas. I thought the pacing could have been slightly better. This is a little bit under a 2-hour film, which is a reasonable length of time for the story that this movie tells. But, I thought the first half of the film could have been paced slightly quicker, but this is pretty typical. Films were just generally a little slower paced in the 40s. It's no big deal, really. And also, although the ending works well and fits with the themes of the film, I did feel also something that happens in some of these older films, that the ending was maybe slightly rushed, but overall, I think it works well, and I'm just kind of nitpicking now. So I definitely recommend Shadow of a Doubt. I would say it's like a 4.5 out of 5 movie. Not quite a 5, not quite as iconic or great for lasting impact as some of Hitchcock's later films, but I definitely recommend Shadow of a Doubt. I think it's an underrated Hitchcock film that, maybe as many people haven't seen as some of the more classic later films like Vertigo, Psycho, Rear Window, North by Northwest. But I definitely recommend Shadow of a Doubt if you like these older type suspense thrillers or you're a fan of Hitchcock and you haven't seen it. As always, thanks for your support. Thanks for watching.